Hello, everyone. Today we have John and Justin with me from Colossians Handyman. They are the expert in fixing each and everything. In case if you have any sort of services, which starting from gutter repair, painting services, fencing, anything and everything you want, we'll have the credentials in the description. You can reach out to them. John and Justin, thank you so much for accepting the invite for the podcast. It means growth. We are happy to host you here. We would love to know your story about Colossian Handyman. How did you start? How do you both know each other and sort of?
Sure.
Yeah.
Justin, you want to start?
Yeah, so kind of starting off, John and I both had separate businesses
Hmm.
doing handyman work. John
Okay.
had started Colossians Handyman Services. I started All
Hmm.
Things Handyman, and John and I met through a Bible study that we both attend. One
Hmm.
day, a little over a year ago, John approached me about joining forces because he had some growth ideas, but he was kind of scared to take the death on his own, to jump on his own. So we
Hmm.
partnered up, formed the Colossians Handyman LLC that we have now, and
Hmm.
kind of hit the ground running.
So the name, I think, Colossian came from the Bible study which you were doing. I believe that's the inspiration, right?
Not necessarily the Bible study because that's what I had named my business, Colossians Handyman Services, before. So our
Okay.
mentor, share a mentor as well. His name's John Claskin, and he's the reason we're both handymen. And his is First Core Handyman, which is from First
Okay.
Corinthians. So that was kind of the inspiration for my name to go, well, what Bible verse do I want to build my company on, right? So I landed on
Hmm.
Colossians 3:23, and then when I told Justin about that idea,
Hmm.
he loved it. So now it's our verse that
Yeah.
we just kind of stand together, which is in everything you do, work as if you're working for the Lord, not from human masters. So
Yeah.
it's just this idea that we don't work for our clients directly. We're working for God. We're doing His work, and our clients are just the
Hmm.
recipients of God's grace through us.
That's an interesting thought. I think I never had a thought to approach the same. I think it's a service-based business, right? But the take which you have on this is, I think, completely different. And at least I haven't thought about it in that way. And I think that's kind of sacred. And for an individual, it's kind of sacred on how you have approached it.
Yeah, that's the hope.
Mm.
Yeah. And how long back, like you started this company?
January 13th of 24 would be our official LLC date.
Oh, okay. So you've been part of BNI before Collasion.
Yes. Yeah, I joined
Okay.
very shortly after I started my business because I realized that I was going door to door putting flyers on doors and calling people, and I couldn't get business in the door. Then I joined
Hmm.
BNI and I couldn't keep up. So that was
Hmm.
definitely a good choice there. So we just kind of kept the BNI, and now Justin's in his a BNI chapter as well for Colossians Handyman. So we have two
That's
Yeah, so
great.
chapters of it.
I was in BNI. When I started my business originally in 22, I joined BNI
Hmm.
immediately, and so yeah, we just switched the company name and kept rolling with it.
Okay, I think that's a great one because you are able to, at least because of you have partners, you are able to capture two chapters and I believe the clientele of both of the chapters and the learning from both of the chapters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great one. Because like I'm not alone, so I have a partner who is into the business and he's part of BNI. I usually substitute him like once or twice every month because we have sort of some sort of understanding over there. I think if we are able to target two chapters, probably we'll be able to double down on whatever we are doing right now. So, like, what is the usual challenges which somebody faces when they are into handyman business, and specifically you? Because I believe one of the challenges initially was you have enough ideas, but you wanted somebody to be part of, and just came up. I think that was a good partnership which you have had. I'm
Yeah.
sure that because that partnership is important. If you're able to have somebody you can trust, you can chill at the same time and work. I think that I mean exponentially improves your business confidence, and you are able to do a lot more. because of that person, because you know that person will be with you in let's say whatever happens in business.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the Bible does say it's not good for man to be alone, and I don't think that's just exclusive to marriage. I think when we go into these difficult things like owning a business and starting an LLC that we want to grow into more,
Hmm.
doing that alone I don't know that I would have succeeded. I definitely would not be where we are today if I had
Hmm.
not asked Justin to join me. Because there's been so many times along the way that I've had to call him on the phone and be like, I can't, dude. And he's encouraged me. And I hope I've
Hmm.
encouraged him as well. But it's just
Hmm.
having that person with me to go
Hmm.
down this road and do these hard things has been invaluable. So yeah, that would my number one advice to anybody looking at getting into an LLC type business and wanting to grow it. Like if you just
Hmm.
want to run a man in a truck shop, you can do that all day long. We've got plenty of
Yeah.
friends that do that. That's really not that difficult. I would encourage anyone that wants to do that, go for it. It's a great living. If you're not trying to grow, there's really not a whole lot to it. It's just some bookkeeping and some business owner stuff, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to grow, there are aspects that are just flat scary. And we've both kind of been in places where we're looking at this growth coming and going, oh my gosh, like what do
Yeah.
I hang on to? Because this is insane. This is gonna be scary. Like
Hmm.
places where we didn't know if we were going to be able to pay our bills because we were putting money into growth versus taking it out to
Yeah.
pay ourselves and those kind of things. So just making decisions like that is easier with a partner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But apart
And kind
from
of
that, I think short. Yeah. Please go on, Justin.
yeah, I was gonna say, coming back to your kind of the question of challenges with a handyman business is, I think one thing that I've had a hard time with through the years is doing anything in construction. It doesn't necessarily directly connect to business ownership, like how to grow a business, how to run a business, things like
Hmm.
that. So one thing I've told people so many times is I can go out and do the work all day, every day, and there's no problem with that. But
Hmm.
generating the work and creating a system that it's self-supporting and things like that, that's a real challenge. It's been a big learning curve. And that's an example of the
Hmm.
partnership helping me out a lot is my background is a little bit more working jobs that are kind of labor jobs essentially, versus John's background is a little bit more working in businesses, working in an office and figuring out how things work and everything like that. So that's something where we've come together, and he's taught me a ton just about, growth and how to run a business and how to set things up for success in the future, things like that. Uh,
I think good to hear that you both have complementary skills. Because I think that is also one of the reason you guys bond together so much and you are able to um, serve their entire ride. One of the things which so in the service business, I think it's important. Uh, the important part is, I think, the hospitality part. I mean, you are able to get the job done for a lot of people, right? But that's the plain service which you provide. But how you make them feel is, I think, something which is important because that will actually help you with the retention part, or let's say the word of mouth part, that that person will refer you to somebody else. But if you don't have a proper process, with I think Justin you were talking about, right? If you have certain set of process which is in place, and usually in our set of business, what happens is 4 to 5 projects or 6 projects are working in parallel. You can't be there every time at every project. So your team has to be, let's say, sufficient in a way that probably, let's say, they are able to follow a certain process, provide all the solution or the support what client is required, and then eventually make him satisfied as well, so that that person is able to actually uh, speak good about you, give a good review on, let's say, Google My Business or something of that sort.
Yeah,
yeah.
that is a challenge to make sure that, especially with the challenging customers, right? Like 90% of our customers, they're a joy to work for. Like we go there, they're kind, they're nice. A lot of these old ladies give us lemonade and tea and cookies. We get all kinds of cool snacks and nice
Hmm.
perks for working for these kind people. But there is that 10% that are hard to work for. And I think we
Yeah.
all in all of our industry experience those people at one time or another. And
Hmm.
the Bible tells us that to love your enemy is the greatest. Like it's not hard to love my brother. It's not hard to love my wife, my family. I
Yeah.
always love those people very as much as I can, right?
It's natural.
But somebody that is in my face irritating me, to love that
Hmm.
person is challenging. And so that's when
Yeah.
it's really, really important. And for me, that's where the partnership has helped as well, because we've had clients where I've been struggling with, oh my gosh, I can't deal with this person anymore. And I would call Justin, and he's
Hmm.
like, dude, Colossians 3:23, man, you're not working for him. All right, cool. And it just refocuses, right? But yes, that's the
Hmm.
challenging part is loving those people that are not lovable. And it's part of our
Hmm.
core values, which is quality, integrity, respect, love, and growth. That's the 5 pillars we've built our company on. We put love in
Okay.
there for that reason. We want to love our customers. We want to love our employees. And a lot of companies say this is a family environment. We really want to be that. We don't want to
Yeah.
grow to a point where we're not a family anymore. So if we've
Hmm.
got more than 50 employees, we're not doing it right. We need to stay nice and
Okay.
small, and we need to have a company that is family. Like if Joe's working for
Hmm.
me, I want to know Joe's wife and his kids. And when I see Joe, man, how's your kid's soccer game? You know what I mean? It's a family
Yeah.
thing. It's not just okay. I'm going to pay you a paycheck and you're going to go do work for me.
Yeah. It's
It's
not just a transaction.
exactly, yeah.
Hmm. So, like when you started, I think you started BNI when you started Colossian Handyman, right? So, what percentage, or like if you want to express like how BNI was able to support you in your initial days, because I think the initial days are the much scary because you don't know where to start, and there's so many things when you're a business owner. You wear so many hats. Probably you would have to be an admin one day. Probably you'd be in operations, HR, or something of the other sort, right? But maybe I'm good at operations or something which I do because I do hands-on, but I suck at uh, taxation or accounting. And I think
Yep.
for us, BNI was a huge support in that way. So what is your experience of that?
Yeah. So I mean, the ROI in the early days was amazing. Like I'm
Hmm.
the nerd, two of us, I think, so I keep all the spreadsheets. But like in the early days for my solo business, I paid the fee to get in, and I had the first 2 months I had an ROI of 7. So it
Oh,
was
that's a good one.
like right out the gate. They had a bunch of work for me, and since then, looking at the numbers or so, I think BNI is about 30% of our business right now, maybe a little bit
Hmm.
more, just because we don't track everything super well, but we track everything well enough that I can see the trends.
Hmm.
So I think it's about 30 to 40% of our business right now. Justin, what about you when you started?
So when I first started, it's a thing to say because BNI is very helpful, but you have to find a good fit. Excuse me. And the first chapter I joined wasn't a great fit, so there wasn't a lot of work for me to do, but it was a lot of I learned a lot though. So I didn't get a great return on investment financially, but I did get a good return on investment as far as meeting people who gave me information on how to do things differently, how to structure things. And through that first BNI chapter, that's how I eventually ended up in my next BNI chapter, which had a much higher financial return in addition to the learning. So,
Yeah, and I think at some point it's important because that's what keeps you going. I mean, at till a certain point of time, I think you can still rely on, okay, I'm learning a lot with respect to, let's say, my communication skills or the soft skills, probably networking. But at certain point of time, it should financially also make sense because that's a great motivation. Because every week on same day, you'll have to be there early morning, spend 4 to 5 hours, talk to people. That needs a certain sense of encouragement, and financial encouragement is one of the, I think, leading motivation. If you have good partnerships over there, good friends, I mean, initially these are just random people, but eventually they become your friends. So if you have good friends and it's making financial sense, I think you'll be more than motivated to go over there. It's not going to be a task, it's going to be part of your daily routine.
Yeah, that is key. Finding a BNI group that you want to go to. That is very helpful.
Yeah, cool. So let's say if somebody is looking to start their handyman business of their own. Uh, I'm sure that you would want to encourage them to do certain things, and you would want to, let's say, list certain things in which they need to be beware about, because they might face initial challenges over there.
Sure. You want to feel that one, Justin?
Yeah, so I think a big one is it's easy when you're working in services and you're working with tools. It's easy to
Mm,
justify buying expensive stuff. Yeah, like, well, this thing is, yeah, it's $500, but oh man, it's going to make me so much more efficient. I think it's really
mm,
important to kind of curb your spending early on. Make do with what you can, and wait until you have that cushion to start investing in things. That's something we did with even with our vehicle. We bought a really nice truck, and it's a great truck, and it works well. It does us good, but we probably spent a lot more money on that truck than we should have, and it's definitely over when there's dry periods and things. That truck payment hurts, you know. So I think that's one of
mm.
the things that just try to curb your spending, make do with what you have, because you can get creative in this kind of business. You can make do with a lot of
Yeah.
different things, different than what you see on YouTube. And
Mm,
honestly, I think it helps you grow in your skills as well because you're going to learn to think outside of the box. You're not going to have this one specific tool to do that job. You're going to be able to do it 12 different ways that somebody else can't do it. So it's going to make you a better handyman and it's going to help you keep money in the bank as you go along.
yeah. I think
And
that's
that's
a good
tough.
one.
When you get into spots where you've got to have something, there are times when you do have to spend on it. But
Hmm.
if we hadn't went and bought a new truck and got a payment on it, and we would have just went on Marketplace, scraped together $3,000 and bought an old beater, those dry times would be so much better.
Hmm.
Like, in the plentiful times, we're very grateful that we have that truck, that we can go and load it up, and it always
Hmm.
works, and it's whatever, it's towing capacity, it's great. But we could probably have the same thing with an old beater truck, is the reality of
Hmm.
it, and that's what we should have done looking back in retrospect. But the
Yeah.
past is the past; you can't change it, right? So
Hmm.
hopefully we can pass that on to somebody else and then just encourage them that, yeah, just
Yeah.
you don't need the $500 miter saw. Go on Marketplace and find one for 150. Probably going to be more
Hmm.
portable. Just find the cheap tools early on, and then once you've achieved success and you've got a
Hmm.
positive cash flow every month for 6 months, yeah, man,
Hmm.
buy the nice truck. When it makes sense for the business, get the
Yeah.
nice stuff. You should, but early on, I'm totally with Justin. Like, just get by with what you can.
That's a good one, because I think initially people are so much invested in a way that they would want to buy all sort of things, because at least they believe that, okay, this is gonna help them. But if it's gonna pay for the bills which you have, I think you will get to know about it eventually.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to calculate initially that, okay, it's gonna be worth it or not. Because,
Mhm.
for example, I mean, the truck thing, I'm sure that initially it was difficult to understand was it worth it or not. Now we are able to understand and talk about it, and it's a learning for us. But back then, when we were making a decision, I think that was worth it. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
And
go ahead.
sorry.
Sorry.
what's that? No, yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's hard it's one of those things, yeah, like looking back, you can always say things,
hmm.
and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought, so go ahead, carry on.
Yeah. So I mean, the other vehicle we have is just a van that I is also financed that I had. I think I bought that before we went to the LLC, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
because it's got the old logo on it. Yeah. We haven't rebranded it. So what I would say though, going forward, just moving away from the negative side of it and going to the positive side of it, is where you do want to put your money, right? Because you
Hmm.
don't want to put it into stuff that, yes, it'll have a small return because you'll be more efficient. But like Justin said, if you do it the hard way, because you have to, you're going to learn better skills, right? And then moving forward, where you do want to put your money into, even if you don't have it, is marketing. That's something we've
Hmm.
learned. And don't stop, because
Yeah.
we've done that twice now in our business. That's why those slow seasons happen. We get super
Hmm.
busy and we're like, oh man, work, 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 right? Get it all done. And then we get 2 months into it and go, okay, hold on. We were booked out 4 months. Now we're booked out 2 weeks. What happened? And then you start marketing, but marketing doesn't work that way. It takes a good three
Yeah.
months for that to return. So you've got to
Hmm.
keep marketing, even when you don't have the money to do it, which if you're
Hmm.
continually marketing, you will. that it's almost a guaranteed ROI if you do it intelligently. I would also say hire a professional. If you can
Hmm.
get a business coach alongside you, we have a business coach that works with us as well. It's OSG. It's our success group with Aaron Montgomery, just to plug him shamelessly. Um, he has helped us so much. He has been invaluable. He's encouraged us to seek out professionals and that kind of thing. So if you can find a marketing professional that you can
Hmm.
afford, because they are expensive. But if you get to a
Yeah.
point where you can afford a marketing specialist, that'll help you grow. And if you can find a friend or somebody that is like in school for marketing and just pick their brain, that would help you
Hmm.
do it yourself and do the marketing.
Hmm.
Or AI, even artificial intelligence is becoming a big part of
Yeah.
what we do with our business. We've named him Charlie, so Charlie helps us a lot, and we pay for a subscription through just ChatGPT, and that the
Hmm.
information we get even from the artificial intelligence is really good. But the point is, you as a person only have so much potential, energy, knowledge that you can pour into the business, right?
Hmm.
You have to get it from somewhere else if you don't have it. So with marketing, you have to be smart about how you put it in there, and you have to get that information from somewhere else, and you have to spend the dollars. So
Yeah.
I heard somebody say, I don't remember who it was, but they said even if you have to get a loan to keep your marketing going, do it, because the marketing
Okay.
has an ROI attached to it. You will get that money back, whereas a
Hmm.
saw is not going to get you much money back. You're still going to get that job done in the same amount of time, realistically. So it's
Hmm.
just spend the money on the marketing because that'll bring you wealth, and then you can buy the fancy things.
Yeah. I mean, I'm the marketing guy in general, so like my
There you go.
core is yeah, we are into marketing, so we understand the importance of marketing in general. So for example, like we worked with a roofing company. When they started with us, I think they were just one. They just have one own and operated outlet, but now they have 10 into franchising model. And I think the major role play was because they were running two different type of marketing campaigns. One for customers who can pick up the services, and one for the people who would want to buy franchisees for that specific company because they build that kind of reputation in that specific market. And so one of the challenges with the client was, let's say if you are able to capture 20 miles or 30 miles kind of a radius, if you have another outlet which is another 60 miles away, then you are able to capture twice the market in the same sort of area. So the expansion in that way makes sense. And I think for them, I think 70% of the business is coming from marketing. So if we stop marketing and like to be honest, for us, like we stop marketing in between, and it has happened that the client is like, okay, I'm booked for next 2 months. I don't think it would make sense to do a marketing campaign because my client requests are immediate. And I can't tell them that in the next slot, which they'll get is 3 months after later or probably 4 months later. So it would make sense to pause the campaign. Then we are completely blackout for next, let's say, 2 months or 3 months until they have enough time to rebook the appointments or do something of that sort.
Right.
Yeah. So while doing marketing, like, do you mind sharing what kind of things which you would suggest people to do? I'm sure the running ads is one part of it, but the kind of work you do, I think these are the kind of content which is usually there on Instagram as a satisfying content. People
Mm-hmm.
usually just keep on watching certain things, uh, and here in India as well. I'm sure that it's a nature, global nature. So if there's certain things which you would want to suggest people that okay, try with certain, I mean these four things or two things that might help you with the initial kickstart.
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of free options out there. So Facebook,
Hmm.
Instagram, even things like Twitter or TikTok, those kind of things. Yeah, they're satisfying videos when we take before and after pictures. That's something we
Yeah.
really suck at, is taking before pictures. So we'll get like 2 hours into the work. Do we have a picture of this before we started? No. So then we can't make the before and after picture, right? So
Yeah.
I made a few of those videos,
Hmm.
and just use CapCut, and you can use free tools. I haven't spent any money
Hmm.
on that side of the house as far as marketing goes. So you
Hmm.
can make videos fairly easily, even for a guy like me that's not super savvy with like video editing
Hmm.
and graphic art. I was able to do decent. Um,
Hmm.
Somebody with some training might do a little better, but you can get it out there and it's still satisfying content, right?
Yeah.
So that's free. And then just doing ads and stuff, again, back to the artificial intelligence. Charlie helps us out a lot with the content.
Hmm.
Excuse me. Just generating ads and using Meta Business Suite. I'm able
Hmm.
to schedule ads out so we have a post every day on Facebook and Instagram. And it's always
Hmm.
a handyman tip. You always want to provide value. That's your number one when you're marketing. And then once you're done providing value, then you want to create a hook, right? To say,
Yeah.
okay, well, yeah, we provided this value. Here's this tip. Like we've had a couple where, most people don't know you can reverse the direction of your ceiling fan. And if you do that in the winter and turn it on low, it'll circulate the heat through your house better because it rises, right? And then pushes it back down.
Yeah. Okay,
That
that's
one was a
interesting.
huge. We got all kinds of responses on that. People saying thank you. So you get
Hmm.
posts like that or whatever, and then you find out what works. You track that, and you start doing that more often.
Hmm.
That's a really good way to do marketing for free. But then, yeah, we run ads on Facebook. We run ads on. So Craigslist still exists, believe it or not. And for handyman
Hmm.
work, there's a lot of older folks that know Craigslist and are comfortable with that. That we've gotten some
Okay.
business off that. It's a $5 ad. I mean, that just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to not do that, right?
Yeah.
So then there was Nextdoor, which is also free. It's kind of a
Hmm.
neighborhood app around here, at least, that you can use Nextdoor and advertise, and then get on the groups on Facebook. So there's a
Hmm.
ton of groups out there. I think I've got our Facebook business page involved in, I think, 13 different groups
Oh,
that we
okay.
can post into. And it's St. Louis local handyman and Mr. Fix It
Hmm.
Up something or other, and all these different groups that we're in. The the municipalities, like we're in the O'Fallon group, we're in the Cottleville group, we're in all these different groups. A lot of them have
Hmm.
rules that you can't just spam your stuff out there. Like the Cottleville Forum, you can only post on Wednesdays if you don't have brick and mortar. So, you got to follow all the rules. And yeah, it's tedious and there's a lot to it. But if you put the time in, I think we've proven that it absolutely does work in returns because we're booking in April right now, and it's
Oh,
barely fit. So
yeah.
it definitely works. And our actual ad campaign has not came back yet. We're getting ready to do a mailer, which is going to be expensive, but it'll have a
Hmm.
good ROI. So we're willing to spend that money, right? So
Yeah.
Justin, have anything there marketing wise?
Yeah, yeah. Early on too, one thing John mentioned is kind of like talking to somebody who's just starting a business like this. John and I both went through phases where we just went door to door and put flyers on people's doors, And I had better experience with that than John had, but I think it's something to tell if you're talking to a new business owner who's just starting up their handyman business. You're going to have a lot of free
Hmm.
time on your hands. And so I
Yeah.
think just finding ways to fill your time. Don't just sit around all day waiting for a phone call.
Hmm.
If you want to get on Facebook and learn how to do all this stuff, or for me, I'm not as techie. So I printed out, I went to my in-laws' house and printed out 500 flyers, rolled them up with rubber bands, and just found the nicest neighborhoods around my area and just went door to door, hanging them on doors. And, then I started getting phone calls. So it's like just fill your time
Hmm.
with ways to get your name out there. Don't have idle
Yeah.
time. Just try to be busy during business hours whenever you can. So
Yeah, I think one of
Absolutely,
the takeaways for me from this conversation is being effective. I think you both guys are extremely effective with what you do. You think through about each and everything before you do it, and eventually, when you do it, you keep a strong track of each and everything so that you are able to understand if that thing is making sense or not. A lot of times, I think there are a lot of ideas which goes around, and you plug in some of the ideas, but you always, I mean, you forget about keeping a track of if that is thing is making sense or not. If I'm investing, let's say, 2 hours of my week over there, is it giving me enough revenue out of it, or should I invest it somewhere else which is more valuable? I think you guys have nailed it a lot. I think that's a good takeaway for me and my business. I would want to be more effective with certain things, which I just realized after having a conversation with you.
for sure. And we do take a lot of our wisdom from the Bible. I mean, that's being a Bible based or a Christian based company. It wouldn't
Hmm.
make sense if we didn't pull a lot of wisdom from the Bible, right? So
Yeah.
Solomon was the wisest and the richest man ever. And if you study him, you see a lot of these practices that he put into place with his kingdom. And
Okay.
it's just following that sort of model is what
Hmm.
has led us to this, to track your investments and make sure that they're actually making sense. And I
Hmm.
think that's where the don't throw your pearls before the swine. comes in, because you don't
Okay.
want to take your pearls of your time and
Mm-hmm.
go put flyers in a trailer park.
Mm.
That's not going to get you a lot of revenue. Now,
True.
if you want to use that as like an extra thing, like, okay, well, I've already done all the nice neighborhoods, let me do this too. Great, but don't start there. Start where it's going to make the most sense, right?
Mm.
So yeah, just using a biblical model for business, and there's a ton of books out there on this as well. I would encourage any
Mm.
business owners to do some reading, and at night in your downtime, because as a business owner, we don't really have downtime, right? But
Mm.
at night or whatever, when you have a moment, read a book or watch a podcast or listen to a book on Audible if you're not a reader, whatever,
Mm.
and learn about what business is. Maybe even like take a course online from a
Yeah.
business college to learn how to do the business, because it's really easy to just get into the flow and do the work every day and not work on the business. And if you
Mm.
learn the
Yeah.
distinction between working in the business and working on the business, and you do both, you will experience growth.
Let me
It's a
just
slow
write it
process.
down.
You're writing it down.
Yeah. So there's certain things which stays with me, and I think this is one of them. That working in the business on the business, I think I was thinking about it when you say it, and it's a great one.
Yeah.
Mhm. Cool, please go on. Actually, I interrupted.
Oh no, I mean that's all I had on that topic really. Yeah, that's just keep trucking, keep going. I mean, it's
Hmm.
hard, it's gonna suck. There's gonna be periods where you can't pay your bills. That's going to happen.
Hmm.
You can't avoid that. The storms will come. But if you praise him in the storm, he will come through and he provides always. That's just what we've
Hmm.
learned, and it's just what we count on. So in the rough times, and just to be perfectly honest, Justin's the rock here, not me. So in the rough
Yeah.
times, I look to him for strength, and he provides it. And
Yeah.
we move through those times knowing that God is going to provide. So
Hmm. It is for people like me. I think you guys are like a sort of a channel from which the wisdom from Bible is getting transferred via you to me, because I haven't read it, but um, when you speak about it, I I mean, I'm thinking about it more that okay, this makes sense, and this is making sense from the business point of view. A lot of time when we think about it, we don't have a distinguish between personal and professional thing. But I'm able to understand this is impacting not just the personal or my religious feeling. It's also about my professional well-being and how do I operate my business. It's a lot about that as well.
yeah, absolutely.
So, like we have a short segment in the podcast in which, so the last guest which we had yesterday, she asked a question to you, and I mean we have a question which you'll be asking to the other guest as well. So the question she has asked is, what is your vision about the company? And like, let's say if we talk about 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, what is that one let's say mission, or what is that kind of thing which you're trying to achieve from Collagen Handyman?
That's a great question. Justin, why don't you start on that one? I always get to take this one.
Yeah. So we've got quite a vision in mind. So right now we're Colossians Handyman, right? What
Hmm.
we're striving to achieve is Colossians Enterprises. So Colossians
Hmm.
Enterprises will own Colossians Handyman, doing what we do. Colossians
Okay.
Property Renovations, doing bigger jobs, doing things like house flips, things like that. Colossians
Hmm.
Property Management, managing rental properties, being, good landlords for people who can be helpful and approachable. And those
Hmm.
three businesses will then fund Colossians Ministries, which
Okay.
small scale for Colossians Ministries, we want to have community outreach in our local area. So whether that's going out and building parks or repairing churches or finding families in need who have a kitchen that flooded, but they can't afford to repair it, we can go in and take care of it
Hmm.
for them, things like that. And as we
Okay.
scale up, that'll expand to nationwide and then globally, where we can start going out to other countries and teaching the local people how to
Hmm.
build a house, how to dig a well, how to do all these things. We can go out there, teach them the
Hmm.
skills, do it with them, and then leave them with the skills to do these things, and also with a better community that they're living in, that they can spread that around
Hmm.
themselves as well. So Colossians Ministries, that's the big vision. That's what we really want to achieve, and kind of doing all this other stuff in the meantime to get there. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that makes sense. I mean, the initial struggle is more about how do we build, and let's say we are trying to pay the bills, but eventually the broader mission is to give it back, make this place a better place for at least the people who are not able to afford and still do the things, because you will be able to educate them, provide them services which they are not able to. I think that's a good one, because a mission driven thing is something which will actually keep you going for a very long time.
Yeah,
Otherwise, let's say if you're able to earn enough at certain point of time, I mean, you have had enough that you would, even if you earn more, it won't impact you much. The lifestyle would be very similar. You won't be spending a lot more. There'll be a certain, let's say, a plateau which is coming. But if there's a mission in which you would want to give it back to the society, I think that's a never-ending thing. Um, you can spend your entire life in that without even realizing that it's a job or it's a task for you.
for sure. Our mentor John Claskin, he's also the leader of our Bible study,
Hmm.
and he always says, that he wants to be the conduit through which the money flows. He wants a small cup that'll overflow and go on everybody else, and that's kind of the mentality we've adapted as well. That we don't, that people get hung up on the concept of tithing, and as a
Hmm.
Christian company, we also want to tithe because that's giving back to God and that honors Him. And it's really
Hmm.
more for us than it is for God because it changes our heart when we give to
Yeah.
humility and to gratitude and open handedness. So
Hmm.
we want to be that company that gives back 90%. We want a
Oh.
small cup. We want to be able to just pay the bills for the company, pay the bills for our personal lives, live
Hmm.
comfortably. And then the other 90% of the income that comes in through these three companies, we want to go on right back into ministry so we can do these things. Because to go over to South Africa and take a mud hut village and turn it into a town is not cheap. That's a
Yeah.
multi-million-dollar
Hmm.
quantity or uh, job, whatever you want to call it, a multi-million
Hmm.
dollar project, right?
Hmm.
Because everything from the logistics of getting a plane to transport all of that lumber and materials over there to
Hmm.
having people over there every day costs thousands of dollars daily to have people over there. All of that, it really, really adds up. But I think
Hmm.
if we're giving back 90% of what we earn with those other companies, we can achieve that and then partner with churches and those kind of things and do drives and fundraising as well if we need to. But that's really, like
Hmm.
Justin said, that's the vision, man. That's what we're excited about. That's what keeps us going. Like
Yeah.
in the low times and when it's hard, sometimes we'll just stop and just dream about that for a minute because it's like we need to fuel the fire again because we know we're getting weak,
Yeah.
and just remember the why. If you know the why of what you're doing, you won't fail
Hmm.
because you're
Yeah.
focused on it. Just like when Peter stepped out of the boat, his eyes were on Jesus and he was walking on the water as a human being. The second he looked at the waves, boom, straight down. And
Oh.
it's the
Okay.
same thing with business. You keep your eyes
Hmm.
on the prize and the reason why you're doing it. And for us, that is to serve God. If you keep your eyes
Hmm.
on that, you will not sink into the water. But the second you start looking around at your storm and having anxiety, you will sink because a man has never added a day to his life by worrying.
Hmm.
More wisdom from the
Yeah.
Bible. So it's just you have to keep focused on the why.
That's a good one. I think for me today, it's not just about learning in general about the business. I've had good experience about how uh, Bible is shaping people's life, not just from like I mentioned earlier, not just from the personal point of view, from the professional point of view as well. I think it's a good learning for me, and it makes me more excited towards reading Bible. I think
Good.
that's gonna be
That's
something which I
awesome.
would want to read. Cool. If you can give me one question which you would want to ask the next guest, I think that would be nice.
Hmm.
one question. You got a good one, John?
I'm thinking. I don't. One question for the next guest. Maybe more just of a what's your favorite part of your business? Like
Mhm.
You know, for us, there's a lot of things that are negative, and we've talked about a lot of the hurdles. We didn't really talk a
Hmm.
whole lot about the positive things. Like, why do you love being a business owner? Because
Hmm.
90% of the time we all hate it. It's terrible, right? It's hard. We're exhausted, but
Yeah.
people do it for a reason. Again, back to
Hmm.
that why, right? So what is the next guest? What is their favorite thing about running their business?
Hmm. Cool. I'll ask this question definitely. I think we have a podcast with the next is on Monday itself. So I'll make sure I'll ask the question.
Great.
Cool. I think we are towards the end of the podcast. I would really want to thank you both, Justin and John, for accepting the invite and answering all the questions and helping me also understand a lot more about Bible and the way you approach a business. I think that's a learning in itself. Thank you so much for being part of Christmas Growth.
Yeah, absolutely. We enjoyed it, and this was an honor, honestly. And I'm so happy to hear that have sparked some fire in you to read the Bible. That's great. And
Yeah,
we're here anytime
one
you want to talk about it. And if you need help, guidance, we would love to have that conversation with you. So we'll pray for your growth.
100%. When I read it, I'm 100% I'll shoot you a mail and
Yeah,
I'll let you know what is my takeaways.
perfect.
Yeah.
Cool. I'll click on the stop button, and after that, it's gonna